Hello. Welcome to the Shotgun Thoughts broadcast, everybody. Today, we're going to be pretty much presenting what could be the best argument for the left and the Democrats at this point. Because there's really like one of two outcomes that are going to happen in 2024. And at this point, anybody with some real sense on the left is pretty much should be of the mindset that, all right, look, the party has been completely hijacked at this point. Like, that's not the Democrat Party. It hasn't been for a while, but at this point, like, things are just off the rails. The best thing that anyone on the left could say at this point is that the party has been completely compromised and the Democrats can still hold to their values and use this as an exploit to really propel themselves into the future if they want to stay around. Because what's been going on is just not only the destruction of the United States of America, but it's just entirely the destruction of the West, and thus so pretty much the rest of the world. If you think the West is doing bad, the rest of the world has gone back hundreds of years in some respects. There are people that went from living fairly, ruggedly and on their own and trying to survive to basically being enslaved again or just straight up murdered. Millions of people have been murdered over the past, decade or so. And it's not just in the wars, it's in the casualties of, very inhumane practices and ideologies and a lot of barbaric, tribalistic types of things coming back that we haven't seen this going on since like medieval times. Like these things are barbaric, I should say. And in a sense, all of this has been highlighted. On the right, we got our, there's the flaws of the right, and those things are definitely come to light as well. But it all culminates together in the fact that this has all been exposed. The common person, whether you are in the West or not, I mean, probably if you're not in the West, you're more aware of this happening and a reality that this stuff is not just like, a figment of our imagination or history or, the past. And wow, things are so much better. The more we think like that, it's just that Luciferian illusion of like, grandeur, and we're gonna get through this. But things don't necessarily look too good for anybody that wants to keep going in this direction, because there's no basis in the foundation that has been there for humanity for the longest time. And with this, the best thing that they can do is just pretty much say that this has highlighted an enormous problem for the Democrats, and that they're going to retake the party and do away with a lot of this bogus nonsense that's going on right now. I mean, you can even clearly see them disparaging and not even bringing to light any real candidates on their side. It's just people who are going to be in their pocket and also push the same shit that's been going on for a while. And while the West and people, countries that are not necessarily complying the most, even though the West, it's a slow crawl, but the rest of the world is experiencing this at a super heightened pace. There are countries right now that is just, the refugees are taking over everything, because if they can't get their way with the common man, they're going to bring in people to do their dirty work in a sense. And that's why this country right now is being loaded up with people that have no respect or no discernible interest for any of the American values. And they're coming here for opportunity. Like anybody else would, they want to do better in life. But not having the same values as us and not holding those same principles at a high regard in life and the sacred humanity and law and order of society. These things are the slow crawl in the West that they're inflicting upon us. They're doing this with the environment. They're like literally using the fact that these natural things happen and all of these things. It's like things are coincidental. They do happen. But now they manipulate and hijack these things. They do the same thing that is coincidental. And so it's easy to blame and say, oh, well, this is wildfire season or whatever it might be. You know, though it's volcano. It's an island with a volcano on it. How could it not, be that hundreds of people die in fire and stuff like that? But it's like, these are all foolish, naive excuses to not ask questions and not look into these things. If it is the case where, Maui, Laiana is not been attacked with a weapon, or it wasn't some type of something antagonized by humans in some way, then progenited by humans, then why are they not happy to investigate these things? Why is it not that it's like, oh, well, you're wrong for thinking it's a conspiracy, when if it's not in any way, then that can just be put to rest. That's the reasonable way to do things. That is what the people of this country are demanding. And it's going to get to that point where it's inescapable anymore. Because these, I want to say lobbyists, we can't even say these words anymore. Globalists, they're really just looking to put the squeeze, and they don't care anymore in a way. Or maybe they do, and this is why they're at full speed, because they see the reaction by the public, especially in the West. We have to be the gatekeepers and the guardians of just really the humanity that we've built so far. Because without the rule of law and all of the Greek and the Judeo-Christian values and all of these things that we've learned throughout human history, they're culminating in the West. And it's not mine per se. That's why, as an American, we invite you here, because we want you to come here and experience this. And if you can handle this, if you can take that responsibility, if you can do what you need to do to become a citizen, a resident of this country, we accept you as one of our own. There is no other country in the world that people will accept you truly, that people will call you an American when you're in Greece. You are not Greek if you're over there and you don't look like one of them, and you don't speak like one of them, and you don't play the part. Even if you do, but you are not born from wherever it might be, they're not going to call you in that regard. Not the people who were born there, lived there. It's just not the case. Over here, things, we amalgamate, and we're willing to just accept that things flow and change. And there's an expression of humanity that is lost if you do not let people do as they wish and follow the natural consequences of that and build around these systems, and don't try to force your way in nature. That is what the West tends to accept, is that there are ways that we have to just let be of the human nature, and there's going to be bad that comes from that. But look at the progress, look at the benefits that come from everything that we have. And again, there are its flaws. There are the things that are taken advantage of. But it is not by the common man in major regard. It is by the people who have power. It is almost like analogous to water consumption. In every country, the water consumption in large is from government and major, enterprise, a huge enterprise. But one, the private enterprise is paying the bill for that more than not. There's, their own problems going on with how they might finagle stuff. But then the government Trust me, that usage is probably higher than the private enterprise, and they don't care. They do not care. They're leaving lights on. They don't give a shit at the end of the day. It might, to some effect, affect their budget, and some of these smaller government departments might have to put on the sensors to make sure when nobody's in the rooms the lights go off and stuff. But that's few and far between. In large, regardless of their size and enormity, they're the ones using a lot of these resources that somehow in turn they're asking that we do more than them to change these things, recycling and all of these things. Meanwhile, only like, what is it, less than 15% of all recycling is actually recycled. The rest of it is just sold to other countries and then they burn it because of the fact that we're not allowed to do some of these things to get away with it. So it's cheaper for us to just sell it somewhere else where it doesn't cost $25 million to get rid of this in a ethical way, and then they go and do our dirty work for us, which is happening around the world. Like, where we want to do our part and do this, do that, meanwhile the whole rest of the world doesn't have our same values in that regard. They're not trying to do that. They're trying to get from day to day, almost like how we're getting back to over here. Friggin' most Americans, not even $1,000 in case of an emergency. Basically everything going to crap over here. Even the gas, the fact that the gas prices are going up again, they got some balls. They're seriously selling off the whole federal gas reserve to China. We don't have any backup with that shit. There's just so many things now where this cannot continue, and the Democrats really need to jump on a new route to stay alive in this sense, because it just cannot hold up. You got all the people who are going to bat right now are just a bunch of lunatics, except for a few who somehow still kept their allegiance. But is that it should be a uniting carrion call to the entirety of the West, but really the world, is that we're united in the same way that this two-party system basically works for one interest when it comes to the top. Us at the bottom, we need to remember that the left-right interest for us, it needs to be united. That a lot of our intentions are the same in the end. We do not want what's happening going on right now. Both the people on the left and right do not want what's going on right now. It's been brought to such an extreme that, like, the middle is so far away from what's even happening. If you are a normal person, you are like, you're an extremist. According to what is happening now, you are the one that needs to be, like, re-educated. Jordan Peterson going for re-education on some of the DEI. I don't know why at this point it has not been called DIE. Why are we not just switching one of those words around? This thing needs to be said for what it is. Like, this is death. These things, this diversity, inclusion, and equity. You hear that? Diversity, inclusion, and equity. Die. This is die, We need to get away from this stuff and just back to normal life. Merit, this guy's not doing his part. He's being a little bit too woo, He gets what he deserves in that sense. So calm it down, buddy. We're at work, we don't need you kissing this guy over here. We don't need you, kissing your girlfriend or whatever. Whatever it might be, it doesn't matter. It's still explicit. It's too much. It needs to be toned down. We need to get back to that level where everybody's to hold each other accountable for things. At this point, they're a problem, but litigation has become really such a mainstay in that's how, like, everything is just revolving around, and they're like perpetuating this shit to a huge degree, because that's the only way that you can, like, move through society, is like the literal, and if you don't play by these weird games as well, then their side gets to go after you. But now I'm getting a little lost here. The uniting cry of bringing everybody together. The fact that these things are something we all want to get away from. It's not even that, you know, one party is even too different from the other. It's the fact that, you know, one of them protects monetary interests and one of them protects power and control types of interests. But in the end, those two things pretty much become the same. I mean, whether it's power or money, those two things are going to end up in the same spot eventually. Like there's no balanced route when it comes to that. Now, us keeping the accountability there and making sure that this was something that we all learned from and really used to bring us together. You know, like this could be the aliens that Ronald Reagan was talking about. It's like we have an existential threat as humanity, and I think this has been put on display many times. You know, we like to blame Hitler, but it was the Nazis. It was the people who went along with that. It wasn't just one man who controlled everything. These people had to go along with this. These people had to slowly let it happen. This ideology is not just like one man somehow mind controlling people with, you know, technology or something. It didn't happen that way. This is humanity. This is how it happens, and we have to all be united against that in that sense. Where I don't know, man, why are we even doing with these parties right now where it's like, I don't know, like this is why conversations need to be had about this shit, because these things need to be expressed for any solution to ever come about to these things, you know? Like even with the Republicans, there's just there's no saving grace in that sense where there's a certainty. I guess there will never be certainty in a lot of things, but at least the fact that we can start calling things what they are will make it a lot easier going forward and stop allowing the ridiculous things that are going on. You know, there's a price that we have to pay sometimes, and I think a lot of us learned that for the last 3 years with COVID. And you know, some of us lost jobs, some of us, you know, actually got sick, we lost loved ones, we had, you know, draconian restrictions on us, and food prices, things got out of control, shortages. It's been madness for the most part. Things that a lot of Americans have never really had to deal with, people in the West haven't had to deal with. And, you know, it's like not only over here is there turmoil, but it's being taken advantage of around the world. You know, if you think that they're kind of putting up the corral around us over here, it's happening worldwide, where like if we don't get a hold on the world again, like there's stuff happening in the macro that we're not really even concerned about, at least on a, you know, on a street level down here in America. But you know, China's got a lot of stuff going on over there. We really cannot ignore that. Russia, Ukraine, that's another big thing that there should be an enormous amount of transparency with. And you know, I don't care what is going on. There is a need to do something for sure. Now, what it is and how much money, that's another issue. But for the fact that these other countries are receiving so much of America's tax dollars, and we are suffering over here. They're giving the people of fucking Layana $600, or Maui $600, man, for all the. I think they said it's like 17 billion in damages or something like that. Like it's gonna be like 17 billion in recovery to get a lot of that going again. And it's like, will it, or is that gonna end up just getting sold to some, you know, contractor, and it's all gonna get developed? It's like, you know, things are very iffy. Where that's what I'm saying. These people think they're gonna keep this shit up without any recourse or accountability. It's not gonna happen, man. You might have to really get things fucked up over here where people are really losing their minds and we are actually fighting with each other. It's going to be something that they cannot ignore. You know, it's like, it's going to be deafening. They can never hear the sounds of our chorus because they're just so gated and high up in their estates. But it will be something that they hear this time, and it won't just be a simple matter of, oh, I'm sorry, you know, that's it, we won't do it again. And you know, it can't be that. It cannot. It needs to be like Italy, where you get put on a cage in a raft and you get sent down the river, and you know, we'll deal with you from there. But yeah, that's my thoughts for today. A lot of stuff I've been thinking about. I've been discussing a lot of it with others, and that's mainly where these things are getting lost. And then I don't have as good an ability to regather my thoughts after they've all been expressed and unloaded on a fellow friend of mine. Or unfortunately, sometimes my wife's got to hear these things, but maybe she finds it very educational, and as do you. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next time.